My name was Ahmed. I was an Imam, a voice among many, revered in my community and tightly woven into the fabric of devotion that enveloped my world. I prayed daily, passionately reciting the words of the Quran, believing I was serving a higher purpose. But beneath my polished exterior, an abyss of disconnection gnawed at my soul. I lived in silence, burdened by doubt, an unspoken war waged within my heart. Then one fateful day, everything changed. Mecca went silent, and so did I. It was during a routine prayer that I first felt it. A chilling emptiness creeping into my spirit amid the sacred chants. Even the most powerful verses echoed hollow in my heart. What had once felt like divine connection morphed into a suffocating blanket of fear and obligation. Every night, I lay awake, combating shadows of doubt that whispered, "There's more." Little did I know, those whispers were preparing me for the confrontation of a lifetime, a moment that would reshape my entire identity. Then came the accident. In the blink of an eye, I found myself in a vast desert, a desolate realm devoid of sound and comfort. It was there, in that void, where he appeared to me, Jesus, vibrant and radiant. He called my name, cutting through the silence with a message that pierced my very soul. What followed was not just a revelation, but an awakening, an invitation to break free from the chains of spiritual deception, to question everything I'd ever been taught. But returning to life was never simple. Awakening from a near-death experience didn't grant me an easy road. Rather, it plunged me into deeper turmoil. I faced rejection, hostility, and the crushing weight of familial disillusionment. Telling my story felt like unraveling my very existence. Yet amidst the darkness, I felt the pulsing call of a new truth. A mission ignited in my heart, urging me to find the light in the shadows of despair. Today, I'm here to share this journey of transformation, an odyssey that led me to seek authentic connection, away from tradition's shackles. The world around us may seem entrenched in division and fear, but I've seen the path to liberation through faith and courage. There is a war being fought, not with weapons but with truth, a battle for hearts and souls. As we dive into this story, I invite you to journey with me. Leave a comment below. Where are you watching from? And what time is it now? Your voice matters in our quest for understanding. And if you too feel the call of Jesus resonating in your heart, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Together, let's embrace the revelations waiting just beyond the silence. The next chapter of transformation awaits. In the ancient city of Mecca, steeped in Islamic tradition, life was woven tightly into the fabric of strict obedience. Every day unfolded with ritual, a silent code that governed our lives. My name is Omar, and as an Imam I stood at the forefront of this adherence, guiding others in their faith while inwardly struggling against the constraints of a system that left little room for dissent. I devoted my life to teaching the Quran, sharing its teachings with reverence, while the weight of expectation pressed down on me. The atmosphere was thick with tradition, but underneath it all simmered a profound sense of emptiness. A silence, not just in the streets but in my spirit. Each day I led prayers and offered guidance, but my heart was heavy with questions that felt too dangerous to voice aloud. Why was there such a divide between the teachings of love and the reality of oppression? Why did fear of judgment stifle curiosity in our community? These feelings festered within me, creating a chasm between what I believed and what I felt. It was as if I were caught in a spiritual war, battling the expectations of my position against the truth I yearned to discover. The silence surrounding me was deafening, wrapping me in chains forged from tradition and fear. Then came the fateful day that the veil was lifted. A tragic accident, a sudden turn of fate while driving home from the mosque, led to a near-death experience that thrust me into an abyss of darkness. In that moment of quiet chaos, time lost its meaning, and I felt suspended in a void. Just as despair began to creep in, a brilliant light pierced through the darkness. In that radiant glow stood Jesus, a figure cloaked in love and understanding, beckoning me toward him. As he called my name, everything around me melted away, leaving only the clarity of his presence. Jesus spoke to me, and in those moments, profound revelations unfolded. I was shown the manipulation of power, the hidden agenda of the elite, and how they crafted narratives designed to keep the masses in line. The truth of how our societies functioned became painfully clear. We had been conditioned to accept deception as reality, our hearts shackled by fear and division. I learned that my own faith, rather than being a tool of liberation, had been weaponized to suppress inquiry. The spiritual war won was blind to become a palpable struggle. I was confronted with the very essence of deception that had governed my life. Emerging from that experience with a newfound sense of purpose, I felt compelled to share the truth I had witnessed. Yet the fear of retribution gnawed at me, creating a tension that seemed insurmountable. Could I truly leave behind everything I had ever known? Would my family label me a heretic? The weight of potential loss loomed heavily in my heart, but the love and acceptance I felt in Jesus' presence outweighed those fears. I realized that the awakening I experienced was not just for me, it was a call to action, to confront the darkness that had suffocated so many lives. Each step toward sharing my revelations seemed like a leap into the unknown, but deep within, I knew the truth must be spoken, no matter the cost. The journey ahead was destined to challenge everything I had ever believed, yet it was the only path I could follow now. I have dedicated my life to the mosque, standing as a well-respected Imam in Mecca, known for my eloquent sermons and deep commitment to my family. But beneath this disciplined exterior, I've long grappled with an emotional emptiness, an unsettling sense of disconnection that loomed like a shadow in my day-to-day existence. Each day, I preached about faith, love, and the importance of community, yet in moments of solitude, I felt a nagging emptiness that haunted me. My heart questioned the teachings I disseminated, and the more I analyzed, the more I felt the tension between my spiritual commitments and the disquiet in my soul. This struggle came to a head after a tragic event that left me hovering between life and death. One evening, on my way home from the mosque, a sudden car accident thrust me into a dark void, a palpable silence that enveloped me. In that moment of chaos, time ceased to exist, and I found myself detached from reality, caught in a liminal space where everything I feared and hoped collided. Just when despair threatened to swallow me whole, a brilliant light appeared, guiding me toward its source. Standing there was Jesus, a figure radiating love and warmth like I had never known. As he called my name, I felt every burden of the world lift, enveloped in a comforting embrace that transcended everything I had experienced. Through this divine encounter, Jesus revealed profound truths that shattered my understanding of my own faith. I learned about the hidden agendas of the elite, how political and religious systems often work together to impose control through deception. I was confronted with the stark reality of a spiritual war that had been raging silently, woven into the very fabric of our society. The revelations felt like a flood, washing away years of indoctrination as I glimpsed the power structures that manipulated belief for their own gain. This wasn't just about me. It was about a collective struggle for truth, an urgent awakening needed to break free from the chains that had bound so many. Returning to my life after that encounter left me with a sense of urgency and purpose that was undeniable. I realized that the emotional emptiness I had grappled with for so long was actually a call to action. I could no longer stay silent while others remained ensnared in their own cycles of belief. The fear of losing my place in the community weighed heavily on my heart, but the love I had felt from Jesus pushed me to share these truths, even at the cost of being labeled a traitor. The tension of rejection and the fear of alienation loomed over me, yet the clarity of purpose gave me strength to step forward. As I began this journey, I sought to connect with others who felt the same spiritual awakening. In small gatherings, we shared our stories, each of us feeling the weight of our transformations. It was clear that we were not alone in our struggles. Many had started to see through the facades imposed by society. Together, we recognized the urgency of our mission to expose the deception that kept us divided and to foster a spirit of unity grounded in truth. Our collective courage became a weapon against the hidden agendas that sought to perpetuate division. And with each meeting, I realized this was the beginning of a movement, an awakening not just for ourselves, but for countless others who crave liberation from the bonds of falsehood. As I knelt in prayer, the familiar ritual soon began to feel hollow, like an echo of something once vibrant, but now fading into a profound emptiness. My name is Ahmed, a devoted Imam in the heart of Mecca, where Islamic traditions swirl around me like a comforting blanket. For years, I dedicated my life to teaching the values and tenets of my faith, believing wholeheartedly in the path I followed. Yet lately, doubt crept in during my moments of introspection. The very practices I upheld felt burdened by an unseen weight, and I found myself haunted by unsettling dreams that hinted at the presence of uncertainty lurking behind the traditional teachings I once revered. In these dreams, figures loomed in shadows, whispering doubts that gnawed at the edge of my consciousness. They seemed to question everything I held true, urging me to seek deeper answers. Each morning, I woke with a sense of dread mixing with my devotion. Each prayer turned into a desperate plea for clarity. The silence that enveloped my heart began to grow unbearable, sharpening my awareness of a spiritual war that felt ever present, yet invisible. A battle between the truths I had been taught and the deeper understanding I sensed beneath the surface. The moment that changed everything came unexpectedly. After a chilling night riddled with dreams of despair, I experienced a severe health crisis. The physical pain was overwhelming, but in that moment of crisis, I felt myself slipping closer to death, a boundary I had never expected to approach. In the chaos, I found myself embraced by a vast darkness, but within it, a beacon of light emerged. As the shadows pulled away, I stood face to face with Jesus. His presence radiated love and acceptance that washed over me like a warm tide, dispelling the doubts and fears that had woven themselves into my soul. In that sacred encounter, Jesus shared profound revelations with me. He unveiled the hidden agendas that manipulate faith and power, revealing the deception perpetuated by the elite, those who pull the strings behind the scenes. I witnessed how traditional teachings were often twisted to isolate and control, leaving the faithful bewildered and divided. The weight of politics and social constructs became starkly apparent, forcing me to confront everything I had known in a new light. The call for awakening rippled through my being, not just for myself but for the countless others who had fallen prey to the same deceptions. Returning to consciousness after that encounter left me irrevocably changed. The emotional weight felt lighter, yet it was now replaced by a burning urgency to share what I had learned. This awakening felt like a call to arms in a spiritual war, and I knew my journey was only beginning. I was determined to confront the fears of those who, like me, had previously been solidified by doubt. Even as the potential for rejection loomed, I understood that this mission was essential. The truth I had been given needed to be shared, igniting hope in a world shrouded in darkness and deception, one soul at a time. The day my life changed forever began like any ordinary one, but it ended in an event that would shake the very foundations of my beliefs. My name is Ahmed, a devoted Imam in the heart of Mecca, firmly rooted in the traditions that had guided my life. For years I had preached faith, hope, and the virtues of our community. Yet beneath my public persona lay a growing sense of disconnection, a gnawing emptiness I couldn't quite shake. I found myself wrestling with doubts in the stillness of my prayers, feeling the weight of expectations pressing down, creating an air of suffocating silence. That silence shattered one fateful evening when a severe car accident turned my world upside down. One moment I was driving home from the mosque, consumed by routine, and the next I felt the earth drop from beneath me. As my car tumbled, everything slowed. The chaos outside dissolved into a dull roar, and a profound darkness enveloped me. I slipped into a state of nothingness, caught between life and death, And in that void, I found myself transported to a desolate desert illuminated by a bright light. In this surreal landscape, the weight of the world fell away, and I could finally breathe. It was here that I encountered Jesus. He appeared radiant and full of love, calling my name with a voice that cut through the shadows of doubt that had plagued my heart. The moment I laid eyes on him, a warm light enveloped me, dispelling the fears that had held me captive for so long. In his presence, I felt an overwhelming sense of acceptance and understanding, and it was then that the revelations began to unfold. He showed me truths hidden away behind the rigid structures of my faith, illuminating the hidden agendas that manipulated belief and took root within the elite. Through Jesus, I saw how the teachings meant to uplift had often been distorted, empowering those in control while binding the hearts and minds of the faithful. The spiritual war came alive before my eyes, revealing how the hand of manipulation orchestrated deception worldwide, perpetuating division and fear. I understood that my role as an imam had been part of a much larger narrative, one that I had been too blind to see. The realization sent waves of emotion crashing over me, compelling me to confront the enormity of this truth. How many others lived under the same veil of deception? How many souls were yearning for liberation and awakening? Returning to consciousness, I was forever changed. The revelations I had received resonated within me, and they ignited a fierce urgency to share what I had witnessed. However, with this newfound purpose emerged the weight of potential rejection. What would my community think? Would those I loved most turn away from me? The fear of being labeled a traitor loomed large, but the power of the love I'd encountered gave me the strength to move forward. I couldn't allow the fear of persecution to silence the truth I had been called to proclaim. Each step I took in sharing my experience felt like a leap into the unknown, yet the calling I felt was too profound to ignore. The journey ahead was filled with uncertainty, but I knew it was one I had to undertake, for the sake of others searching for their own freedom. Upon awakening from my near-death experience, the world felt entirely different. My name is Ahmed, and as I opened my eyes, I was engulfed in confusion and a deep sense of internal conflict. I had just encountered Jesus, who had revealed to me truths that shattered my previous understanding of faith. The heavy fog of deception that had surrounded me for so long began to lift, but with clarity came an unsettling reality. I knew my life as a respected Imam in Mecca would never be the same. The weight of the truth I now held felt almost unbearable, and I struggled to reconcile this new perspective with the rigid beliefs I had upheld my entire life. In the days that followed my awakening, I felt an urgent need to share what I had learned. I reached out to my family and community, eager to convey the revelations that had transformed my life. But instead of the understanding I sought, I was met with harsh rejection. My brothers and sisters in faith responded with anger, accusing me of heresy and betrayal. The accusations stung, each word a dagger to my heart. I had hoped to inspire an awakening, to draw others into a new understanding of the world. Yet I found myself confronted with aggression and hostility. Their refusal to even consider my experiences plunged me into a crisis of solitude and guilt. The silence that followed was deafening. I had spent years in service to my community, but now I felt utterly alone. Nights became even more difficult as I struggled against the weight of my guilt and the relentless fear of losing everyone I loved. I questioned whether I had misinterpreted my encounter with Jesus. Perhaps the revelations I received were meant for me alone, not for the world I had known. This inner turmoil created a storm in my heart, as I waged a spiritual war against doubt, wondering if I was indeed being called to a new path, or if I had simply erred in my understanding. In those dark moments, I turned inward, searching for answers. I prayed fervently, seeking guidance from Jesus, hoping he would provide the clarity I so desperately needed. And amidst the turmoil, the flicker of hope remained a constant companion. I knew I had experienced something divine, and while the path ahead appeared fraught with challenges, I felt an undeniable pull to continue sharing the truth I had received. I began to write, pouring my heart onto the pages, capturing the essence of what I had learned. Each word became a step toward reclaiming my purpose, as I attempted to articulate the deeper truths that had so profoundly touched my soul. Despite the barriers around me, I could sense a stirring in the hearts of some who listened. Those who, while hesitant, began to engage with the ideas I presented. Our discussions soon transformed into more than just debates over faith. They became explorations of the hidden agendas that permeate our societies, the manipulation by the elite that seeks to sow division. It felt as if we were igniting a conversation that could lead to an awakening, a delicate unraveling of the deception that had separated us for so long. In the silence that once felt oppressive, I could almost hear the whispers of hope calling me forward, urging me to continue this journey into the unknown. In the quiet hours of the night, I found myself drawn to the Bible, an act that felt both thrilling and terrifying. My name is Ahmed, a once passionate Imam turned seeker of truth. Ever since my near-death experience, the world I knew began to dissolve, revealing a desperate need for something more profound than the traditions that had governed my existence. Each verse I read acted as a mirror, reflecting my inner turmoil and illuminating the struggles I faced. The awakening I experienced with Jesus had cracked open a door I never thought existed, allowing the light of revelation to flood into my life. Yet, even as I reached for that light, I was acutely aware of the shadows lurking around me. As I delved deeper into the scriptures, I became increasingly aware of the dichotomy of my reality. The teachings of Jesus resonated deeply, offering a perspective that contrasted sharply with the rigidity of my background. I watched Christian testimonies online, each story echoing my own struggles and aspirations for spiritual truth. In those shared experiences, I found comfort and solace. I discovered a supportive community that embraced me, acknowledging the complexity of my journey rather than condemning me for it. Each testimony I engaged with breathed life into my weary soul, fueling my desire to stand against the deception that had threatened to suffocate my spiritual awakening. In secret, I began to immerse myself in prayer, reaching out to Jesus with raw honesty I had not known before. These were not the rehearsed prayers I had spoken in front of my congregation. These were pleas from the depths of my heart, aching for understanding and guidance. The peace that washed over me during those moments was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was as if a weight was being lifted. Layer by layer, the burdens I had carried for so long were peeled away, revealing a sense of freedom that ignited my spirit. I felt seen, known, and loved in a way that transcended my understanding. But as I flourished in this newfound faith, tensions escalated in my life outside this sacred space. The whispers of doubt from my community grew louder, and I could feel the consequences of my exploration bearing down on me. Friends I once thought were allies turned cold, their faces etched with disappointment as they accused me of abandoning our shared beliefs. The fear of being ostracized pressed upon me like a heavy cloak, but the truth I had uncovered kept me steady. I was caught in a storm of emotions, grappling with guilt for stepping away from my role as an imam, while feeling a profound urgency to share the awakening I had experienced. The awareness of a spiritual war replayed endlessly in my mind. I was engaging in a fight not only against the taunts of my community, but against a broader deception that affected millions. I felt the call to expose the hidden agendas swirling around, understand the political manipulations, the division orchestrated by religious and societal elite. My desire to spread the truth burned fiercely within me, but I also recognized the necessity of patience and resilience. My journey was unfolding, and while the path ahead seemed fraught with challenges, I remained committed to the pursuit of truth, striving to awaken others to the possibility of liberation and the love that awaited them on the other side of fear. Each step I took was a reminder of the battle I was engaged in, a relentless quest to turn the silence I once lived in into a chorus of awakening. In the dim light of a secluded place, I prepared to undergo a clandestine baptism that would symbolize my spiritual rebirth. My name is Ahmed, and my journey from a respected Imam in Mecca to this moment had been fraught with tension and awakening. After my encounter with Jesus during my near-death experience, my life had spiraled into uncertainty. I had faced rejection, hostility, and accusations of heresy from those I once called brothers and sisters. Yet, in the depths of my heart, I knew that embracing this new faith was no longer a choice. It was a necessity, a truth that had pulled me from the depths of despair and into the light. This baptism was not merely an act of faith. It represented a profound commitment to the truth I had found. With each step toward the water, I was reminded of the spiritual war waging inside me, a battle between the old beliefs that had once defined my identity and the new hope I was clinging to. I could feel the weight of my past pressing against me, but as I stood there, ready to be submerged, I felt a surge of strength rise within. It was a powerful reminder that the waters would cleanse me, not just washing away the physical dirt, but purging the spiritual debris that had accumulated over the years, fueled by deception and fear. As the cool water enveloped me, I recalled the revelations Jesus had shared. He had shown me the manipulation crafted by the elite, the hidden agendas that kept our society divided and blind. It was a chilling truth, the realization that our spiritual teachings had often been warped to serve the needs of those in power rather than uplift the individual. I could almost hear the echoes of his voice, urging me to break free from that bondage, to awaken others to the same truth that had transformed my life. The moment I emerged from the water, I felt as if I had shed the very skin that had held me captive for so long. In this new reality, I began to understand the full scope of my purpose. I knew that my journey wouldn't just be about seeking personal enlightenment. It would be about sharing this awakening with anyone willing to listen. The fear of rejection still lurked in the background, but the peace I felt after my baptism gave me courage. Nonetheless, I was acutely aware of the danger I could face. Standing against ingrained beliefs is not taken lightly in a world where dissent is often met with aggression. In the weeks that followed, I sought out others who, like me, were yearning for a deeper understanding. People who also felt gnawing doubts about their traditional teachings. As we connected, I shared my story, emphasizing the revelations and truths I had encountered. Each conversation became a safe space for exploration, where we could dissect the layers of deception that had been fed to us and cultivate a sense of community grounded in love and acceptance, rather than fear. It was invigorating to witness the spark of awakening in others' eyes, a flicker of hope that resonated with my own transformation. And with every story we exchanged, I felt more resolute in my path, aware that the journey had only just begun, and that the spiritual war we were fighting would be both difficult and vital in the pursuit of truth. Realizing that my near-death experience was a divine calling changed everything within me. My name is Ahmed, a once devoted Imam in Mecca, who had dedicated his life to teaching the Quran and serving my community with unwavering commitment. But after that fateful encounter with Jesus, where revelations flooded my spirit, the world as I knew it began to dissolve. As I stood in the aftermath of that life-altering moment, I felt the fire of purpose ignite inside me. This wasn't merely about asserting my new beliefs. It was about warning others, about shedding light on truths long obscured by the fog of ignorance and the hidden agendas of the elite. I couldn't shake the sense that my experience was not just personal. It felt as though I had been thrust into the midst of a spiritual war, a conflict far deeper than my own struggles. The oppressive spiritual systems I had once quietly accepted became increasingly apparent. I began to see how these systems manipulates faith, stifling authentic connection with God, turning devotion into mere ritual. As I reflected on this newfound understanding, I recognized that this was my call to arms. I had to rally against the deception that had been suffocating the hearts of believers for generations. This truth needed to be shared, not just for my own freedom, but to liberate others trapped in similar chains. With a renewed sense of urgency, I reached out to those I knew, sharing my testimony with fervor. Each conversation was a dance between fear and hope, as I grappled with the possibility of rejection. It was heart-wrenching to see some faces contort with disbelief, their eyes clouded over with anger and fear of what I was proposing. The spiritual awakening I had experienced clashed violently with the rigid beliefs they clung to. Yet there were also those who listened, those whose eyes flickered with recognition, whose hearts began to stir at the mention of truth. The tension in these discussions was palpable, as if we were on the brink of something significant. As I spoke of the hidden agendas that controlled societies, the manipulation of belief systems by the elite, the political games being played in the name of faith, I felt the walls begin to shake. There was a collective sense of awakening. It was as if the very air around us crackled with potential. The realization that we had been kept in the dark became a unifying force, bonding us in our shared quest for understanding. I could feel the urgency deepen with each passing moment, a calling that demanded action in the face of overwhelming odds. Through it all, Jesus remained my guiding light, a beacon of love in the eye of the storm. His revelations illuminated not just my own path, but also the way forward for others. I found peace in genuine prayers, in the authentic connection that the spiritual systems had tried to suppress. And though anxiety sometimes crept back in, the fear of losing the only world I had known, I held fast to the hope that this awakening could span beyond just my own life. I knew I could no longer remain silent. As I gathered with others who, like me, sought truth, I felt the weight of our collective journey. We were paving the way for a new understanding, determined to stand against the deception that had pervaded our lives for far too long. In a symbolic act of courage, I prepared to leave my former life behind. My name is Ahmed, and after my encounter with Jesus, the world that once made sense had become a web of shadows and uncertainty. It wasn't just about abandoning my role as an Imam. It was about shedding an identity that had constricted my spirit for far too long. As I took a moment to reflect, the realization settled deep within me. This was a rebirth. Stepping into the unknown, I felt an exhilarating mix of fear and liberation washing over me. I knew I needed to adopt a new name, a new identity that reflected the profound changes I had undergone, and the journey that lay ahead. Transitioning into this new life felt almost surreal. I felt like I was walking in a parallel universe where the rules were rewritten, and I could finally breathe without inhaling the suffocating weight of expectation. Each step solidified my commitment to living authentically, chasing the truth I had uncovered during my near-death experience. The revelations Jesus had shared had opened my eyes to a spiritual war that permeated our existence. The hidden agendas of the elite, their manipulation of belief and fear, the deception that divided us, all of it bubbled to the surface as I confronted the reality of my new life. However, this journey wasn't without its risks. I felt the gnawing anxiety of potential backlash from the community I had spent my whole life serving. The weight of their judgment loomed large, and I knew how easily I could become a target for their ire. But as I stood on the precipice of this new beginning, I was reminded of the love and acceptance I had felt in Jesus' presence. It became a beacon guiding me through the darkness. I realized that, while the path forward was fraught with uncertainty, the call to share my experience and warn others about the deception was far more powerful than my fear of rejection. With each passing day, the urgency to connect with others who shared similar struggles consumed my thoughts. I yearned to find those who were also seeking truth, those who felt trapped within the rigid structures of their beliefs. It was as though I could feel a pulse of awakening starting to take root. The silent cries of individuals yearning for a deeper connection with God echoed in my heart. I began to seek out gatherings, quiet meetings where spiritual seekers could come together to share their experiences, liberate themselves from the constraints of dogma, and engage in open discussions about the revelations each of us had encountered. As my new identity began to take shape, I felt a deep sense of peace settle within, The act of stepping away from my past life was not merely about loss. It was about embracing a greater purpose. In witnessing the effects of the spiritual war upon our society, I understood that my journey was not just personal. It was a larger call to awaken others to the truth. I felt compelled to share my testimony, not just to break the chains that had shackled my soul, but also to invite others to do the same. There was a collective movement forming, a groundswell of yearning for truth amid the glare of deception, and I was ready to serve as a catalyst for that change, regardless of the cost. Years have passed since my life took a monumental turn, and my journey continues to unfold. My name is Ahmed, and after that fateful encounter with Jesus, I made it my mission to share his love across various communities. The initial shock of leaving my former life behind, of stepping away from my identity as an Imam, was overwhelming. However, the call to embrace the truth I had found became an unwavering force, propelling me forward. I dedicated my life to reaching those who, like me, were trapped in a cycle of religious obligation yet yearning for something deeper, something real. As I traveled from community to community, I witnessed firsthand the impact of the spiritual war that permeated our society. I spoke to individuals who had faced their own struggles, and through those conversations, I could feel the weight of the deception that had kept them from experiencing true freedom. Many were bound by chains of tradition, unable to question the beliefs that had been handed down to them. My role became one of a catalyst, helping others awaken to the truth that lay beyond the walls of their dogmas. Each story I shared about my encounter with Jesus opened doors to transformative conversations, igniting a spark of hope in hearts that had grown cold. Despite the many lives I touched, I could never fully escape the ache of separation from my family. I held on to the hope that one day they would understand my journey, that they might come to see my new beliefs not as a betrayal but as a rebirth. I had been shown the depths of love in my encounter with Jesus, and I yearned for my family to experience that same grace. The fear of loss lingered like a shadow, but I committed to praying for their hearts to open, for their eyes to see the truth that I had come to embrace. I realized that while religion can bind, true freedom arises from one's personal spiritual truth. The revelations Jesus shared with me continue to resonate deeply within my soul. He unmasked the hidden agendas of those in power, showing me how political machinations often veiled spiritual truths. In my speeches, I emphasize these insights, urging communities to see beyond the media facade that perpetuates division. I speak passionately about a world where fear is replaced by love, where hope rises above despair. This mission has transformed me into a bridge, connecting individuals searching for meaning amid a landscape dominated by manipulation and control. In every encounter, the urgency of our collective awakening becomes more pronounced. I see it in the eyes of those who listen, in the stirrings of empathy when I recount my journey. Each conversation is a reminder that we are not alone in this struggle. We are together, facing down the wrongs of a world that seeks to keep us divided. As I continue this journey, I find strength in the knowledge that even though the road may be long and fraught with challenges, the pursuit of truth binds us together. That is the essence of my work, to illuminate the way forward and inspire others to join in the awakening. The battle may rage on, but I am committed to fighting alongside those who seek a deeper, more profound connection with the divine. As I reflect on this incredible journey, I am compelled to share my final thoughts with you. Have you ever felt an unshakable pull toward a truth you can't quite grasp? A whisper in your soul pushing you to question everything you've been told? Because I believe these nudges are not mere coincidences. They are the divine beckoning us to awaken to a greater reality. Since my life-changing encounter with Jesus, I have come to realize that there is a vast spiritual war being waged, not just in the world around us, but within each of us. This battle for truth, light, and love is one we are all a part of, whether we recognize it or not. It's an invitation to break free from the chains of deception and emerge into a life filled with purpose. As more people begin to share their stories of awakening, a collective consciousness starts to shift, and it is a beautiful thing to witness. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had an experience that shook the very foundation of your beliefs? Maybe it was through a moment of despair, a dream, or an encounter that led you on your spiritual path. Please share your experiences in the comments. Your voice matters. Together, we can weave a tapestry of understanding that transcends traditional boundaries. If my story resonated with you in any way, I urge you not to leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond and hitting the notification bell. We are on the brink of uncovering even deeper truths about our existence, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Your journey to empowerment begins here. In the upcoming video, we'll explore the powerful transformations that occur when we embrace the truth we uncover, featuring testimonies from others who have walked similar paths. I am Ahmed, and I want to thank you for engaging with my story today. Remember, the quest for truth is a journey we take together, and I'm honored to walk this path with you. Stay curious, and until next time, keep seeking the light.